So this is the new variety KWS Palladium. It's a Group 2 variety and it shows the potential to match the grain quality that we see in some of the Group 1 varieties with the yield and the disease resistance that we've come to expect from varieties like Siskin and Extase. The initial signs for grain quality are good. This has a protein content of just over 13% and a Hagberg of over 300 when grown to a milling specification. Only the first year for Palladium on the recommended list, so we're going to have to wait and see whether this does pick up appeal with the millers, but as I said, the early signs are very good indeed. When we turn to look at disease resistance, the picture gets even better. Like KWS Extase, this is a very clean variety to grow, and whereas Extase has set the benchmark for ultra clean varieties with a septoria score of over 8 and a very strong score for yellow rust, Palladium performs respectably. A septoria triticide resistance of 7.4 puts it at the higher end of the ratings on the recommended list, and it also has very good resistance to both mildew and yellow rust. A slightly lower disease resistance rating for brown rust is perhaps the only blot on the copybook, but this is in line with other widely grown feed varieties like LG Skyscraper and Graham, and certainly not as bad for brown rust as the Group 1 variety Crusoe. Straw strength is another positive for KWS Palladium. You can see that even in this untreated plot where it's had no PGR whatsoever, the straw is reasonably short and indeed has a very good strength from what we can see so far. When we look at the treated plots behind us, it shortened that straw considerably, and this has an 8 for standing strength or risk to lodging when treated with a PGR on the recommended list. So what that gives us is a variety that can be pulled earlier in the drilling window. When we've compared it with Siskin and Extase, these are two varieties that, although having very good disease resistance, something we like to see in varieties for early sowing, their straw strength and their gross habit actually make them slightly risky prospects for growing in certainly early to mid-September. Palladium, by contrast, could be sown in that position. So what that means is that Palladium gives us a viable option for early sowing and would actually work very well alongside a variety like Extase, which could then be used in the main and later drilling window. So we've talked about grain quality and we've talked about disease resistance, but where does Palladium sit for outright yield? Well, on the latest version of the AHDB recommended list, this sits 1% behind its big brother KWS Extase. That would put it 2 or 3% ahead of the other varieties in the Group 1 and Group 2 sectors. As you would expect from those disease resistance ratings, untreated yield for Palladium is also strong. We should be aware when we're looking at varieties like Palladium and Extase that they do come at a yield penalty versus the very highest yielding feed wheats, as much as 6 or 7% versus some of the newer options available. So that's a compromise that we have to be happy with. If we can accept that small compromise on yield, Palladium is providing a new option in this Group 2 sector with a different maturity and growth profile to varieties like Extase and Siskin, allowing for that change in drilling date, and with the potential to provide grain quality on par with the Group 1s. This is certainly going to be one to watch for the next couple of seasons, and we look forward to seeing whether it can live up to this positive billing.